The seventh Dalai Lama wrote in a poem that we should learn to be like the eagle, flying joyfully and playfully through space without any hindrance. In many ways, I think the ultimate teaching of the Enlightenment masters, past, present, future, of the 10 directions, aims at bringing this kind of freedom to the practitioner. But if we look at it from another side, there's also, we live in a world with infinite other living beings. So in that same poem, the seventh Dalai Lama says we should also learn to be like the sun in the sky, shining warm rays of love and compassion on all living beings. So these two aspects of training become very important throughout all of the Buddhist path, from beginning, middle, and end. So in the Enlightenment tip today, the Enlightenment tip of the day, let's look at this example of the eagle and the idea of flying in space joyfully without any attachments or obstructions. I think the reason why in the same poem the seventh Dalai Lama mentions being like the sun shining with bright rays of love equally on all beings is that there's sometimes a contradiction between our personal freedom, attachments, non-attachments, and so forth, and the way we interrelate with other living beings. And so for that reason, these two kinds of teaching, there's two aspects of the main teaching of the Buddha, universal love and the infinity of playful infinity of being, are taught differently by different masters and to different kinds of students. And so when we train in a kind of a traditional way under a living master, that master will very often look deeply into our soul and try to get an inkling, if you will, of which is the best approach for us, what goes first, what goes second, what goes third. But no matter how that is prescribed or laid out by those great masters, it comes down to these two sides of things. Learning to be as warm as the sun with all living beings, and learning to be as free as an eagle in flight. The great Atisha Dipankara Sri Jnana, I always like to say his name very much because it has such a wonderful melody to it as it rolls off the tongue. Great Bengali master who was so instrumental in all schools of Tibetan Buddhism. As he put it, it is important to train under a competent master, and that competent master should have some degree of Tibetans call ngushe, or clairvoyance, but it doesn't really mean like fortune-telling clairvoyance. It means that ability to look deeply inside of the student, the trainee and see what needs to be done immediately in the life of that trainee. And the first Dalai Lama, in one of his texts, says, best first to was very karmically ripe beings who work on the being free like the eagle side. He doesn't say free like the eagle side, but that's what he means. What is the symbolism of that free like the eagle? The shunya side. And for those not so ripe, to work first on the shining like the sun. And I think if we're to talk about the practices, most lamas today traveling and teaching tend to emphasize the sun-like quality. Perhaps they feel that as a general teaching, this is more immediately applicable and beneficial, both to the practitioner and to the world. Or perhaps without that personal touch, it's difficult to jump directly into the emptiness side of things, the shunya side, the free like the eagle. But anyway, I think for today we talk a little bit about the eagle side of things. There's many ways to discuss or to talk about that freedom, but one discussion that I've seen in the Tibetan world that I like very much is known as the Parapasum, the three pegs. Three pegs. On one side, we always try to peg our inner spirit to just pure clarity or radiance, unobstructed radiance. That we hold that peg very, very firmly. If we're to put it in a traditional Buddhist lexicon terminology, then we would say hold the mind in shunya or hold the mind in dharmakaya. Dharmakaya there means the unobstructed nature of being. One of my teachers talking about that aspect of things said if we look at it from one side, we can say unobstructed. If we look at it from another side, we can say fully integrated. Because it's fully integrated, there's no obstruction. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I don't know, 3,000 years from now, as though YouTube would last so long. But anyway, however or wherever you're watching, if you just sort of lean back for a moment and try to get a sense of the natural, unobstructed nature of your own mind. That's what, of your own presence, your own consciousness. Because mind is kind of an unclear term. And just try to have a sense of this unobstructed nature of being. It's just infinite vacuity, like space. And the second peg being to try to have a kind of a warm, joyful, playful feeling in your presence. The eagle flying through space. It's hard to look at an eagle in the midst of flight without having a sense of exhilaration, of great beauty, great joy. I think that's why the seventh Dalai Lama uses that image. And thirdly, the sense of everything about your life, having this kind of clarity and joyful integrity. In other words, everything that happens to you is part of your joyful, playful being. And everything you do is an expression of your joyful, playful nature. This sort of bringing the spaciousness of the sky and the exhilaration of the dynamic flow of your life, bringing those together in the third peg, which is the peg of personal expression and integration in the flow of all aspects of your life.
강가하니 흐른 산등 흩들어오던 수밀지지 하르기듯 하우슬러 잡칠라서니 무릉 골리고스 멜리리 팅큰 텔리리 팅큰 바이님이 기띠기친 유르도 들지테 히띠리 테리 힝우금 보르 한가에다 노타게민